Hey guys, Lee from Full Steam. I'm here with a quick update. Now, British Triathlon have released their guidance on what the return to sport is going to look like. So, British Triathlon are gearing up for a return to sport from the 4th of July. Most other governing bodies for other sports like running, cycling are probably going to do the same. And I think as we start to see what the guidance is going to look like, it starts to tell us what racing is going to look like between now and the end of the year. So it's good to try and communicate that to you guys so that you get a bit of an idea. Now, there's 3 documents that have come out. A couple that are detailed kind of organisers' guides to the main problems and pitfalls, but even then, the guides are pretty open. It becomes the organiser's responsibility to find a good solution. They're just really highlighting the problems, of which there are many. And the framework sets out then the overarching rules that they kind of want everyone to play by. So the key things that you need to know. I'm going to start with triathlon and then I'll talk about the other sports. So British Triathlon have said no competitive events for 6 weeks from when pools reopen. So if we assume that pools reopen somewhere in that week, kind of 4th to 10th of July, so we'd assume they're keen to get back in and that they can get all the pools back up and running in time, that means that there's effectively no competitive racing up until end of August. At which point, so September events competitive, I would suggest anything July, August, expect it to be non-competitive. If you still have an event that's in July and August in the diary. Most events, I think, in that period have probably been cancelled by this point just because of lead-in, but I know some are going to be there, and actually you'll probably see some new events that will pop up with people just trying to get stuff in at short notice. And particularly with the new frameworks around kind of small events being pushed, I think you'll see a lot more kind of small club stuff popping up, but we'll get into that in terms of what that format looks like. The other key change is that all racing events becomes an individual time trial. So you have a solo start with a rolling start between you and the next competitor of probably somewhere in the region of 30 seconds. You'll go off, have your own swim, effectively your own bike and your own run. Once you're out on course, people can overtake you and pass as normal, but that start is going to be really quite distinct, and the finish line's probably going to have to be widened to allow for more separation at that point. There are limits around how many people can be on course at any one time. So the British guidance is now 1 per 20 metres of a course length, so that's something new that came in. But actually, it's reasonably sensible, and from a non-drafting kind of point of view, it's, if you're going to have a 10-metre draft rule, you need to have a bit of buffer. I've kind of said for years that this sort of capacity calculation should go on. Now that's 1 per 20 metres at any one time in that stage. So if you've got a 4k bike course, you're saying 200 people. So I say 4k because Eton Dorley is a 4.5k loop that most people use. So that tells you that realistically you're not going to have more than 200-250 people on the bike course at any one time. But you could stagger events out throughout the day together. And with that individual start, you're going to have a natural flow in and out of that period. So you could probably still have slightly more people taking part in an event. But there are other bottlenecks we're going to talk about as well. So individual time trial format, fine. 6 week non-competitive, I think that's fine. But realistically, then there's other things you've got to look at. So there's not going to really be aid stations. So all races are largely going to be self-supported. The only exception might be water and hot weather, and it'll then be bottled and at finish line. So there'll be bottled water probably just available on tables. Your medal you'll just collect from the table yourself, that kind of thing. They're talking about no awards ceremonies and no prize givings on the day because that's congregation, and no briefings on the day. So all events are going to have to gear up to do briefings probably online beforehand and employ a lot more video and talk to you that way. No changing tents, so that'll affect the bigger events like Ironman. Instead, they're recommending changing ponchos in transition. I can't say I've ever seen a changing. I've seen people get naked in transition before, but I've not seen a changing poncho, so I don't know what they look like. And reduce spectators and not encouraging spectators at all. So I don't know how that's going to work in public places or public courses. I think you're still going to get spectators. That mixing where you have public environments is going to be much trickier, particularly at the moment when parks are so much busier than they have been in the past. I think those sort of environments are going to be really tough. The more closed road environments are going to be better, except they then tend to be smaller and lapped. So there's going to be a bit of a trade-off as to how that works. I think the reality is, in the short term, you're probably just not going to see those big kind of like 1,000-person competitor sprint sort of lapped events. Draft format's going to be out the window, obviously. So reality, for probably now till the end of this season, what you're going to see is that individual time trial, and you're likely to see small events. I don't think you're going to see the bigger stuff. Reality is most of that stuff at this point is now gone and cancelled anyway. The key area that's going to be really problematic is transition. Effectively, the general gist of the guidance is you make transition a lot bigger. Logistically, that's maybe a bit more challenging in terms of infrastructure and it's more expensive to put on. and smaller fields and more cost aren't necessarily happy bedfellows. But I think most organisers would be keen just to get anything on this year, just to keep themselves going, and just to keep you guys going. And then there's big questions around what happens with the atmosphere. If you've not got a finish line environment that's got spectators and cheering and kind of those volunteers kind of egging people on, I'm not really sure what happens. Same with the start line. If an individual start could be really cool, you could have that countdown, you could have people egging on, but it doesn't necessarily sit with social distancing as it stands. That being said, I do think there's social distancing may change, and the definition, that 2 metre rule, may well change between now and when events really come back. So there's a lot of campaigning around reducing that distance to 1 metre, which would make a big difference from a spectator point of view. If you could have spectator groups roughly spaced out, you could have a decent crowd of people still there. So that changed. I mean, then the impact on other sports. So I think triathlon, and that's reasonably clear, but individual time trial isn't a format you normally see in things like running. And are people really going to be interested in running an individual 5k, say, time trial on a course that's probably public and open to the right? It all gets really cagey. So I don't think you're going to see those mass organisers. I don't think park run's going to be back in a hurry. I don't think you're going to see those local 5ks back. Not if they're following anything like this kind of guidance. I haven't seen guidance from UKA that suggests any different yet, but London Marathon will probably inform a lot of stuff there when that comes through. And what do people really want to do now? Does racing just totally change? Are people really interested in racing competitively at the tail end of this year? Do people want to get that out of their system? Or are people just looking just to get a bit of experience? But then if you've not got that race environment and that kind of atmosphere the same way, or it's going to be more difficult to create, it's going to be a tricky one. The question is, what do you guys want to do? Do you guys want to be out there doing events, and what do you want those events to look like? I mean, we are scrolling through the Facebook comments this morning. You can see the amount of flack organisations like Ironman are taking, and they're really on the sticky end of this. Most of this stuff makes it very difficult for them to operate at the standard that people expect for the money they're paying. Are people going to, even within, say, triathlon, push more towards that kind of self-supported, maybe Audax type style formats, a bit like our Castle to Coast? It's a shame Castle to Coast was almost perfect for this kind of environment. It just happened to be, again, right at the wrong time. But that sort of event format next year, I think, could become really big, which was my gut feeling a couple of years ago, and I still think that's the way things will go. But what do you guys want to see out of events? What kind of experiences do you want to get? Do you want to get back and do you want to race? Do you want to get back and you just want to get out there and enjoy the environment? What kind of environment do you need to want to get back out there? Let us know in the comments below.